Hello and welcome to the Keep Right On podcast. I'm Alex Dicken and today I'm delighted to be joined by BBC WM's Richard Wilford to discuss Blues' thumping win over Barnsley on Saturday, the impending promotion party at Peterborough on Tuesday and a little look ahead to Wembley on Sunday when Blues will play Peterborough again in the Vertu Trophy final. Richard, thank you for coming on. Straight away, I think we should probably go into Saturday's game, because it was quite the game. Give us your take on the 6-2 over Barnsley, please.
Yeah, well, you're always welcome for a start. But yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it, in that the game had its start ruined by the red card. And you can argue either way whether Jutkiewicz should have gone for that. I think Keshy Anderson was probably through. Mark Roberts might have chased him down. But I love the fact that Barnsley still came out and played and had a real go, even with 10. And until the fourth goal went in, there was an element of doubt about it. The only flip side of that is I think it is a reminder that if you do come out and play against Blues, there is a danger you will get picked off, particularly towards the end of games when, it could have been anything at the end, couldn't it? If they'd added another couple of more goals, then it could have ended up very much like the Fulham under-21 game earlier in the season. But for me, it was really encouraging because two or three players just looked a bit sharper than they have done for the last month or two. And that would be really, really good for Chris Davis, with some big choices to make this week.
Yeah, Blues were clinical in the final 25, 30 minutes, weren't they? The red card itself, what was your view? Because in the press room downstairs, we were debating it. I was pretty convinced straight away that it was a red card because Keshy's touch looked good enough to me for him to get a shot away at goal.
It was, look, how many times this season have we seen the perfect long ball from Ryan Alsop? He's got the weight of it absolutely bang on. Keshy has controlled it perfectly in that he's killed it into his own path on a direct angle towards goal. So the only question you're asking yourself, Mr. Perkis, the referee, is can the other centre-back get into the box before Keshy Anderson has a goal-scoring opportunity? And I think he's probably got it right. It's harsh early in a game, but you can't judge it by the minute, can you? You can only judge it by what you're seeing. And it's a tough call, but I think it was probably right.
No, you can't. There are a couple of players I want to pick out. Obviously, we know that the main moment was the big moment of the game. We'll come to that eventually. Alfie May came on for Willem Willemsen around 36 minutes. Willem looked a little bit lethargic. He was obviously involved in the Barnsley equaliser, that he lost the header from the Mark Robbins long throw and went off straight afterwards. Obviously, we found out after the game that he had been suffering with an illness and was a doubt to play the game. On Alfie May, 1 goal, 2 assists. Although some have tried to give him 2 goals, so that is not his goal.
Ideally, you'd want to touch it for it to be your goal, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Has Alfie May given Chris Davis something to think about, do you think, going into Wembley? Because, off the bench in recent weeks, the last 3 games, he has played very well. We've seen the Alfie May from early season.
Yeah, I think there are things that count for him and there are things that count against him. It counts for him that Willem has not been in good form. And their options in the front 3 are not huge at the moment, with Scott Wright out for probably the rest of the year, let alone the season. With Emil Hansen injured again, and he's not going to be around for Wembley or the next couple of weeks. There aren't so many players that he can put there. You can play Mark Leonard a bit higher, but he's probably not going to do that. Does he want to push Jay Stansford into a wide position? Albeit it was actually pretty effective when he moved there. I think the thing that counts against Alfie most is the lack of other striker cover. So if you start with both Jay and Alfie, your only striker on the bench is Lukas Jutkiewicz when you're looking to change things up a little bit. So I think they'll be very keen for Willem to be fit this week. May well be for the league game against Peterborough. We see Luke Harris getting a start as one of the 3 behind. And he's actually had a couple of decent performances in recent weeks and took his goal really, really well. I feel for Alfie because I think he's done remarkably well under the circumstances. He might have been thinking he was going to have a 30-goal season. I think it's 14 now, isn't it? But, over 20 goal involvements, 50 appearances, a lot of them cameos. He can be proud of his season. And whatever else happens, I'm sure he gets on the pitch at some point at Wembley, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, I suppose, when a striker does so well off the bench, as May has done in the last 3 games, then the temptation is always to keep them there. And like you say, with Stansfield moving to the left, maybe there would be too much moving around for Chris Davis' liking. So my guess is at Wembley that it'll be the same team we've become accustomed to over the last.
The great thing, though, Alex, you'll feel the same, is that he's scoring goals now, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And he's at least giving Blues that option off the bench again. It's still like you say, Richard, it's a very good goals return to get 14 goals. I know it's not what he would have wanted because he wanted 20 plus. He wanted the golden boot. He wanted to, become, I think he mentioned at the start of the season, being the only player after Billy Sharp to score 20 goals in 4 EFL seasons. He's probably not going to do that now unless he has a very good run, but he's still had a good season and been effective. When you think back to August, Alfie May was the main player, wasn't he? So He's been effective and he's been worth the money. Another striker who was effective on Saturday, Lukas Jutkiewicz, coming on, came in the 83rd minute, scored in the 90th, his first league goal of the season, his first goal at St Andrews since he obviously lit the Knighthead touch paper in 2023, August 2023, in that first game under them. It was wild, wasn't it? I mean, it was absolutely crazy. The 6th goal and a 6-2 win, and the celebrations. I mean, you haven't seen anything like it, have you? Really?
It's crazy. A game that is over and done with. Some fans already left to beat the rush, as my dad used to do when I was a kid. Always had to leave early. And yet it lifted the roof off St Andrews. It's as loud as it's been for any goal all season. The coaching staff are up for it. The players are all running. Ryan Allsop's gone the length of the pitch to join in the celebration. The press box, there was a tear. I had a tear in my eye describing that because I know what it meant to Lukas. He didn't think he was necessarily going to get the chance to score another goal at the Tilton end. And he says, I nearly messed it up then, even with the second touch. He knows he almost messed it up. But I said to him afterwards, I didn't know at that point that we were all going to get to interview him. But he'd done his warm down. I said, Lukas, you scored far more important goals than that in your career, here and at your other clubs. So, but that one is one you have to remember because of the reaction and how people feel about you. Not many footballers get a fan base feeling that way about them, especially after all that they've lived through in the last 9 years. And for me, that was a really, really special moment for a guy who has given over really the majority of his career to trying to help this football club.
Yeah, it was right up there for me in terms of moments of the season. Probably in isolation, I would say it was my moment of the season, a single moment, just because of the reaction. It was absolutely phenomenal. The only thing I was expecting was the fans have been promising a pitch invasion all season, haven't they? If Jukic scored, and he did score, and there was no pitch invasion. I put that to him afterwards, and he said they're all talk, aren't they? So
it's a relief. When the club didn't need that on a day where there was a missile picked up during the game as well. So there'll be a spot of bother for that. I think the last 18 months, or certainly this season, it's not just been about the football, has it? It's been about the healing process.
Yeah.
For the football club and the relationship between better owners and the fan base. And for me, that is a lovely exclamation mark as part of the healing process, is Juki getting that goal in front of the Tilton end.
Yeah, and who knows, he might get a few more chances in the final 8 games of this season to score another at Tilton. Moving on to Tuesday, Blues will be promoted if they beat Peterborough after Wycombe lost to Reading at the weekend. So anything other than a Wycombe win at Huddersfield, because they also play on Tuesday, would also see Blues promoted. A win at Peterborough for Blues, coupled with Wrexham failing to win at Wigan on Saturday, would then see Blues crowned champions before the cup final. So, Richard, are we seeing anything other than Blues getting promoted this Tuesday?
I'd be surprised if it didn't happen. I think, in a way, Peterborough's attitude to this game was shown partly by the kind offer of an extra 1,600 tickets. But because I think they know that this is the moment and Blues will not want to fluff their lines. We can debate whether the timing is really inconvenient. I think it would be lovely for Blues to now have a clear week ready for Wembley. I think it almost forces Chris to play a very strong team on Tuesday. And it may well, I've mentioned Luke Harris may well get a game. There might be one or two. Lennon might get a game. I don't know. But he will tend to go strong. And I think from Peterborough's point of view, I don't think they will go full strength. I think they will save some key players for the game at Wembley. And I feel, well, Blues will have all the emotion, all the excitement of sealing promotion, and maybe we can catch them at Wembley because they've got so much attacking talent. For a side that's in the lower reaches of League One, certainly lower half, they've got so much attacking talent. They've just lost one player for Wembley because he did something daft at the weekend. They don't want to lose any other key players.
Well, they are one of the highest scorers in League One. They've got 61 goals, so they can clearly score goals and cause Blues' problems. We saw that earlier in the season, didn't we, at St Andrews? But they do ship goals as well. They've conceded 70 in the league, one of the worst defensive records. So, they lost 4-0 to Northampton on Saturday. Still 15th in League One, 48 points, 9 above relegation with 6 games to go. So they're not going to get relegated, are they? So this is, their cup final, their final big game of the season, Wembley, not Tuesday.
Exactly. So on Tuesday night, do you expect to see Pucku? Do you expect to see Mothersill? Do you expect to see Jones? I just don't know. There has to be a balance somewhere. But if they've got nothing to play for in the league, they won this trophy last year. They really want to do it again. And they're going to be a proper handful on Sunday. They might not be quite so much a handful in the league game. Yeah,
I read a little bit of Darren Ferguson after the defeat to Northampton. Obviously, he was raging about it and suggesting that they have kind of had one eye on Wembley and that he doesn't want them to have that. So does he then send out a message by playing a full strength team on Tuesday and saying the league is our priority until Wembley is our priority? I think they'd probably be foolish to do that, because if you don't rest your key players and one of them does pick up an injury, Peterborough don't need to lose one of those attacking players, and Blues are going to have a massive, even bigger advantage at Wembley, aren't they? So I would be really surprised if they didn't make some considerable changes.
Yeah, I mean, the team news will be very, very telling at the time. And I'm sure Chris Davis is going to go pretty strong, one, to get the job done, and then hopefully be able to start withdrawing players in the second half. Things do not often go as smoothly as that, but I suppose they did at the weekend, relatively speaking. So, Blues have got probably more fit players than they've had at any other point of the season. Just as always, the injured players or the unwell players always seem to be in the same position.
Yeah. So what changes can he make, do you think? I mean, we kind of know by now what his strongest 11 is, or what the 11 is he's trying to get back to all the time. And it was the 11 that started against Barnsley on Saturday. Obviously, Willemsen's been ill, so you'd presume he might come out of the 11. You've obviously got Alfie May playing very well. Ethan Laird is just coming back from a hamstring injury. Sung-Ho Peck has also had a hamstring issue. Do you think those players potentially could come out? You've got Alphonse Samsted, Mark Leonard.
I think I would certainly make a case for Samsted, but we do know it's a big drop-off, and that's not against Alphonse. That's just pro Ethan, who since January has been absolutely buzzing. And I thought, at times was very good again at the weekend. So you want to be a bit careful with him. I think you want to be a little bit careful with Keshi Anderson as well. He played a full 90 at Bristol Rovers, which is rare for him. And he does get bumped and bruised, and he's been the best attacking player, the best creative player for Blues this season. And I don't think we can... There's barely a debate to be had about that. You might be a little concerned about the amount of running that Kieran Dowell has done, although he looked still fresh at the end of the game the weekend. And for me, such a dynamic addition that he's given Blues since January. So, yeah, there are the various things to weigh up. I'd be surprised if he doesn't make a couple of changes. But equally, Chris loves to stay with his core, doesn't he? And I think he feels he's identified his best 11 up to a point, and that point is still that Willem's out of form. And will that come back in the closing weeks? We'll see.
Yeah, I don't think he can rest Keshi Anderson, to be honest. I think it was quite telling that he took him off quite early on Saturday, didn't he? I think he went off just after around 60. So clearly wanting to give him a rest, but because he is the only fit winger, he's the only kind of natural, speedy option on that left wing, you can't really take him out the 11, can you, at the moment now Hansen's injured?
No, because he's just had a stunning season. And I had a long sit down with Keshi last week, and there are bits of his story that, until I was reading up on it, hadn't really occurred to me how late he was turning pro. I think, like Alfie, he's very, very grateful for the opportunities that he's got. And it's perhaps no surprise. If you think he turns pro at 20, is that therefore a shock that 18 months ago, under John Eustace, he turned up effectively on trial, did so well that they had to bring him in? And then in the summer, when he could have been let go again, he does so well in pre-season and so well in the early part of the campaign that Chris Davis, for him, he's now one of 3 or 4 names that are very early on the sheet. Although, having said that, his team sheet, there's probably 7 or 8 fixed positions now, aren't there? But Keshi has become one of the 2 or 3 stars of the season, as I'm sure you and Brian have been debating in recent weeks. That the Player of the Season award is not as straightforward as it might have seemed 2 or 3 months ago.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I want your take on that, because there are probably 2 or 3 contenders. I feel like there are 2 main contenders now. We've been debating it as we've been travelling up and down the country in recent weeks. And who are you going for? Because Keshi does seem to be really creeping up, I think, now.
Yeah, and there are fans, by the way, who would make a case for the two centre mids as well, and I get that. I think Iwata has caught the imagination, and when you've got the eye for the spectacular like he has, then that goes a little bit further. For me, I'd be voting Keshi. If I had a free vote, I'd be voting for Keshi Anderson, because I think he has been a difference maker, and for me, a number of times he scored in really important games is significant. The winner at Huddersfield, head and shoulders, the most significant goal since Christmas for Blues for me, because that was at a point where Huddersfield were winning a lot of games and they looked like they were going to be the other threat. Wrexham and Wycombe were still hanging around. It's a Tuesday night. The cameras are there. Everybody fancying that Huddersfield are going to be a thorn in Blue's side, and Keshi scores that worldie, and that is up there again in that competition for moment of the season. It was a very, very special moment, and I thought the early goal at Bristol City was so important as well.
Yeah, I'd probably throw Jay Stansfield against Charlton into that conversation kind of moment, the most important goal since Christmas. I felt that was probably similar because they were kind of building real momentum at the time, weren't they?
Absolutely.
But yeah, Keshi's had a phenomenal season, and quite rightly in that conversation for Player of the Year.
And the more you get to find out about him, the more likeable he becomes as well. He's not somebody who wants the limelight necessarily. He's not the person that you see in the centre of things, laughing and joking at the training ground. But he's yet another player in that group that gives quiet leadership. And I think that's something that Blues have got that is really underestimated. And then we can see Clara now, the leader he's become whilst Christian Bielik's injured with the chest pumped out. And the armband sits well, doesn't it, on his arm. But players like Ben Davis and Keshi Anderson give that different type of quiet leadership. Lukas does as well. And I think that is very, very helpful to a manager in his first year in a job.
I know it's easier when a team is winning, and Blues have won an awful lot this season, but that camaraderie and togetherness has been quite apparent since the beginning. Like, in recent weeks, we've seen players celebrate other people's goals more than their own almost. Alfie May going absolutely ballistic when someone else scores. Stansfield running on to Alfie May when he ends his goal drought. Kieran Dow blasting the floor in happiness when Lukas Jutkiewicz scores. That to me is the main thing about this team this season and why it's been so successful. You
can't fake spirit. We mentioned Ryan Allsop running the length of the pitch to enjoy it with Lukas. Funny enough, I think the lead for that a little bit is Jay, because we're talking here the guy that everybody will put pressure on, the guy who needs to justify the big amount of money that Blues paid for him. Now we know, because we're close enough to it to know that that's going to be justified over many years, not over what he does this season. But he could be thinking, I need 30, 35 goals. And yet we've seen him hand penalty taking responsibility to Kieran Dow when he thought it was the right thing to do. And we've seen him celebrate, like you say, the Alfie May goal. Of course, he was very excited for Luke Harris hanging off his back because he's one of his best mates at the weekend. But I do think he sets a little bit of a tone. His work rate, his chasing of lost causes. He's a blue-collar footballer. He is such a good fit at Birmingham City, but he understands that element of doing the right thing as well. So as a result, the other players in the squad aren't going to be, look at him, we paid 12 million for him. The other players know that he's very much one of them.
I've absolutely loved it this season because right from the start when Stansfield came in, obviously every single set of opposition fans have thrown the money card at him. And he's just handled it and scored against pretty much all of them. So
it's hard to blame him when he goes over to hush them, even when it's just a penalty, even at the weekend. And I mean, that was a bit of a heart in the mouth penalty because the keeper has gone very, very well to get close to that. And his first instinct is to go and hush the away fans. And he scored 3 goals against Barnsley this year, so they should know, shouldn't they, by now, how good he's going to be. And that, that the first one of those was, again, one of the most memorable moments of the season, the equaliser at Oakwell. But he's handled himself exceptionally well, Jay. And the other thing that he has, and I've just written something for the BBC Sport website as well about Chris Davis. If you were to ask Jay or Chris Davis, they would both tell you that what's been achieved this season is the beginning. This isn't the be-all and end-all. This is phase 1 of what they want to achieve. And it's going to be very, very interesting there to see how things are shuffled over the course of the summer, building round the likes of Jay and Christoph and the 2 centre mids and just working out what the right supporting cast is.
Yeah, I mean, we debate what they'll need in the summer transfer window quite a lot, but because they've had a year where they've worked with these players in this system and the system is so clear, I actually don't really envisage the starting 11 in the first game of next season being that different to what it has been recently. Provided they get Ben Davies in, obviously, if they can get Kieran Dowell as well. I don't think they need wholesale changes to that 11.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of the known, and the known is how good Davis is as a foil for Clara playing as a natural left footer. The known is that Kieran Dowell is an outstanding championship footballer who scores and makes goals. Priority is keeping those two at the club, and I think everything will be done to try and achieve that. And then it is about the additions that can help things sparkle a bit more. Blues will not face so many low blocks next season. Teams will come and try and play at St Andrews, and that will be a different challenge, and we will see. Barnsley came and had a go and ended up being opened up. Peterborough came and took a 2-0 lead early in the season, and then as the game wore on, got opened up. So it's a different thing. I think the players have the calibre, and you're just looking at maybe 3 starters who are better than they've got, and it's working out where those areas are. But it's wide players is the thing that stands out, and that's notwithstanding Keshi. But you need another couple of really good wide players.
Yeah, you do, because Keshi is the one position where he hasn't really had adequate competition this season, has he?
No.
Moving on, the points record, obviously, once Blues do wrap up promotion, that's kind of going to become the motivation in the final league games, isn't it? So 7 league games to go. Blues need 4 more wins to break Wolves' 103 points record from 2013-14. 5 wins would give Blues 107 points, and that would mean they beat the EFL record, which was set by Reading in the Championship in 05-06, I believe. They're probably going to do it, aren't they, Richard?
Well, the first thing that occurs to me, how good were those Wolves and Reading teams?
Yeah.
Because when you look at how dominant Blues have been this season, only 3 defeats, and yet those records still need them to finish strongly. It's not like they can... if you were saying, if they win 2 of the last 5 games, they'll have a record because they've been that good. But no, they've still got to push on to do it. So that's impressive to start off with. I don't know how well it works as a motivation. I think what you have to hope is that Blues can play with real freedom once the job's done. This is a huge, huge week. Once we get beyond that, we're into that extraordinary Easter window of Friday, Monday, Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday, and then the final game. He's going to have to rotate. So the squad will be a little bit more inconsistent, and it's about whether, with the pressure off, they can just go out and enjoy themselves. Then they'll get the record. Do
you think Chris Davies is the sort who could relax a little bit after Wembley when promotion and obviously the Vertu Trophy are over? They've got 2 wins, hopefully. Do you think he's the sort who can, in those final 6 games they'll be at that point, rotate and rest players, or do you think he's going to be full throttle and going for that points record?
I think he has to play it a little bit carefully, and I think he has to be very fair to those players who have an international career already, who have taken the risk of coming down to League One, which could have affected them. You think of Peck in particular, could have had no international football this season because of the step that he took, and he's very, very proud to play for South Korea. So I think you look at that situation and say, got to mix and match. He will still prepare like he does for any other game. He'll still be watching opponents 10 times before each game. I'm sure he will. Don't know how he'll find the time to do that. But ultimately, I think it is quite hard to keep the focus. You have to do it more with enjoyment than you do it with prep. And if they're enjoying themselves, and when they enjoy themselves, by the way, they're irresistible because they're too good for the teams in League One. And we can say that fairly safely now. Christian Bielik said it and got derided, but of course he wasn't wrong.
No, he wasn't wrong at all. I think that would be the most impressive thing, actually, if after Wembley and after the kind of the carrot of promotion, the cup final are gone, whether they can still be relentless and still keep winning and go to the end of the season and break those records.
Yeah.
Obviously, the games left: Peterborough away, Crawley at home, Burton away, Stevenage away, Mansfield at home, Blackpool away, Cambridge at home. In fairness, apart from Stevenage away and Blackpool away, they're not the most daunting set of fixtures, are they?
No, if you were to pick one game that you think Blues might hit a bit of trouble, that would be Blackpool, I think, because they're full of goals at the moment, full of running. Ennis has become a perfect partner for Fletcher there, so both of them are scoring a lot of goals. Crawley and Burton will presumably still have a lot to play for when those games come about, particularly Burton. They've got themselves 3 points behind Bristol Rovers. So come Easter Monday, that's going to be a team playing desperate. So that will be interesting. final day at Cambridge could be a very odd type of party, couldn't it? In that they're almost certainly going to be down, but Michael Morrison there, who remains a Blues hero and never gave anything less than 100% for the club. So that would be quite an interesting final day there. Are we doing fancy dress?
I don't think we are.
Okay. You sure?
I don't think we personally are, but I'm sure the fans.
If people want to make suggestions, send Alex a message on X.
Yeah, well, we could leave them in the comments. Leave them in the comments. We'll
in the comments. There you go.
We'll ignore them this week. Finally, before we wrap up, I know Sunday's going to be special for you, Richard, because it's going to be your first time commentating on a game at Wembley. How do you see it going? And I know you don't like to predict the outcome of games beforehand, but how do you see it going?
Yeah, no, I mean, sometimes I sort of have a bit of a last-minute feeling about how a game's going to go. I don't know. I think a lot will be determined by what happens in midweek. If Peterborough delayed Blues promotion, I think Blues might come out quite angry on Sunday. I think it's going to be fascinating how the teams handle the occasion. Peterborough, the majority of their players were there last year. A lot of Blues players haven't played at Wembley before, including Jukic, of all people, not having played at Wembley. I mean, that would be massively emotional for him if he gets on the pitch at some point. So let's hope that he makes the squad. I think Wembley occasions are so hard to predict. You know, I've seen teams down there when I've done other jobs. I've never commentated there, but I've been there as a producer. I've been there as a presenter. I've seen teams freeze at Wembley. Do I think Blues will? No, but I think there'll be goals. So I think what it will be is a really good day and a great game, potentially. Might be the first of three that wins.
Let's hope so. Thank you, Richard. Thank you for coming on, and thank you, everyone, for listening. All that remains is to say a big keep right on, and hopefully by the end of this week we are celebrating that double. Thank you.